evolution, 1991. The scenic coastal town, Mangalore, was witness to a new era in the field of medical education. The Islamic Academy of Education, a non-profit trust committed to the upliftment of minorities, was established by the entrepreneur Mr. Yenapoya Abdullah Kunhi. Perceiving the potential of Mangalore suburbs to be a prospective educational hub, he began the establishment of colleges with the principle of excellence in professional education, which flourished into a full-fledged university, providing training in medicine and all its parallel fields. Currently, Yenapoya is a dynasty of educational institutes like Yenapoya Dental College, Medical College, Nursing College, Physiotherapy College, Yenapoya Pharmacy College and Research Center, and Yenapoya Institute of Arts, Science, Commerce and Management were further established to offer education and research in the areas of pharmacy, management and general education. Yenapoya offers a plethora of courses with 89 ongoing and 20 approved and proposed programs. The PhD program has been introduced in 39 departments and research center as per the UGC regulations. The medical college also offers undergraduate courses in technical programs like medical lab technology, medical imaging technology, perfusion, renal dialysis, anesthesia and OT, cardiovascular technology, respiratory care, optometry, as well as hospital administration and others, to name a few. Students are presented with ample opportunities to find their niche. Spread over a sprawling 36.76-acre campus at Teralakatte, Mangaluru, all the constituent colleges are provided with excellent infrastructure to impart knowledge. Spacious examination halls and 19 lecture halls have the electronic support system to engage students eloquently. Practical training is complemented with well-equipped laboratories. The anatomy dissection hall introduces students to the intricacies of the human body before undertaking clinical examinations and procedures. Well-equipped pathology and biochemistry lab foster the importance of diagnostic procedures to implement treatment. The central laboratory is a key unit, conducts number of diagnostic and confirmatory tests. Many significant in vivo researches are conducted at the Animal House of Pharmacology Lab. At the Nursing Nutrition Lab, aspiring students learn to put together a nutritious meal for the benefit of their wards. Pre-clinical exercise at the Physiotherapy Lab enhances clinical understanding. Dental simulators prepare students to handle clinical scenarios. The Simulation Center at Yenapoya is the largest in India and trains students in a virtual environment to mitigate errors and maintain safety. This includes a number of unique state-of-the-art facilities like Anatomatch table simulating the human body, a number of high-fidelity simulators like infant, adolescent, adult, and maternal fetal simulators are housed here. Students seeking to further their knowledge can do so with CPR mannequins, endoscopy, laparoscopy trainers, cath lab and ultrasound trainers. The Simulation Center is a milestone aimed at perfecting the skills of trainees and delivering excellent treatment. Comprising of well-stocked central library, housing thousands of books, journals and publications, regularly updated via digital media, with 7 museums documenting various areas of health sciences. The Dental Museum being the most advanced, affirms Yenapoya is not just a university for the students, but a knowledge center. Students at Yenapoya acquire valuable experience during hands-on training at the medical college and hospital, with above 2,000 outpatients per day at OPD. A fully functional ICU, general wards, blood bank, digital MRD, CSSD, oncology center and kidney transplant unit. Cath labs and OT have been established. The operation theatre is equipped with 14 state-of-the-art modular OTs with stainless steel makeup and HEPA filters and antibacterial and antifungal walls. The operating rooms have state-of-the-art equipment, adequately staffed with experienced professionals. They are customized for smooth delivering of operating procedures, for super specialty and other routine emergency surgical services. The theatres meet quality standards envisaged under NABH norms. The state-of-the-art robotic surgery unit at Da Vinci Surgical Systems is a first in coastal Karnataka. Patients from all strata of society are benefiting from this advanced minimally invasive surgical system at a highly subsidized cost. Considering the demand for surgeons skilled in robotic-assisted surgeries, the university, in collaboration with Intuitive Surgical USA Inc., a global technology leader in minimally invasive robotic-assisted surgeries, has established an advanced surgical skills and robotic surgery training center, which is a second of its kind in the country. The Dental CAD Center is one of a kind in the city. The Radiology Department is one of our primary diagnostic centers equipped with ultra-modern units for diagnosis. The facilities are echocardiography, X-ray, CT scan, ultrasound and digital radiography. The 3 Tesla MRI has been installed for making use of highly advanced and reliable imaging technology for early diagnosis and treatment. There are only a handful of teaching hospitals in the country with this facility. The Yenapoya Research Center is a unique venture equipped with state-of-the-art mass spectrometric instruments and dedicated team aimed at groundbreaking research in newer fields of study, including biostatistics and information, molecular biology, toxicology, cell culture, stem cells and regenerative medicine, nanosciences and nanomedicine, microbiology and mycology, infectious disease and bioanalytics, also patenting the findings. The YU IOB Center for Systematic Biology and Molecular Medicine promotes further research in the branch of molecular biology. Center for Biomaterials and Medical Devices focuses on developing medical devices, biomaterials and non-invasive methods for diagnosis and treatment of diseases. The Center for Health Professional Education conducts regular feedback sessions and training workshops to all faculty. The Center for Substance Abuse and Prevention is an active entity that performs extensive research and counseling on tobacco, alcohol and drug cessation. Center for Ethics is proactive in imparting bioethics and medical ethics to the professionals and students in all. The Yenapoya Center for Craniofacial Anomalies is an initiative backed by a team of doctors dedicated to the study of cleft and craniofacial anomalies. At Yenapoya, social responsibilities are taken seriously. Many community outreach programs and healthcare delivery programs have been chartered for this purpose. The university has a dedicated rural healthcare and development center which caters to 27 sub-centers. The Dental College has 9 peripheral sub-centers in rural and outreach areas, and Physiotherapy College has 1 peripheral sub-center. With 8 hostels for both men and women, the campus is well equipped to provide students with a memorable experience. Students focus on overall development with the use of sporting facilities around the campus, which includes well-maintained sports ground, indoor stadium and multi-gym, helping students to maintain their physical well-being. The university boasts of an active NSS unit with over 500 volunteers. Renaissance, the students' annual cultural extravaganza, is a platform for showcasing their talents in curricular and extracurricular activities. Along with being an educational center, Yenapoya is nature-friendly green campus. The Center for Environmental Sciences is dedicated to the sustainable development of the university campus. 1/3 of the campus is glowing with green. The primary attraction being Medicinal Garden, the campus boasts of initiatives like rainwater harvesting, solar panels, drinking water and sewage water treatment plants. A central kitchen supplies sumptuous, hygienic food catering to all necessities. Yenapoya campus houses a prayer hall, cafeteria, mini theatre, laundry and daycare facility. Education is the food for the mind, body and soul. At Yanapoya, we deliver the best of everything to help our young minds enlighten themselves, making a difference to the world as we know it today. Discover your world at Yanapoya, harnessing the power of knowledge.
Dr. Arun is Professor and Head of Forensic Medicine and also Convener of Medical Education Unit at JSS Medical College, Mysore. Dr. Arun have graduated from JSS Medical College, Mysore in 1996. He completed his MD in Forensic Medicine from KMC Manipal in the year 2002, where he was also adjudged as the best outgoing student in forensic medicine at postgraduate level from MAHE. Dr. Arun have completed his DNB in 2003. He is a FAMER Fellow from PSG Coimbatore. He has also completed advanced course in medical education. His special interest in teaching learning is innovations in methodologies of teaching and learning. Dr. Arun have published around 95 scientific papers. He has participated in 32 conferences. He has been a resource person and have delivered close to 70 lectures in various state, regional and national forums. So with this brief introduction, I would like to present to you Dr. Arun for today's session. Good morning, sir.
Okay, thank you, Pratik, for those kind words of introduction. I also thank the organizers of Yanapoya Medical College and University for involving me as one of the resource person in this webinar. And I extend a warm welcome to all the delegates who have registered here and being a part of this webinar series. Continuing with the yesterday's presentation, which Dr. Nagesh did, on teaching learning methodologies in forensic medicine. It is a continuation of that session. Nagesh took us through the interactive lectures and small group discussions in which he introduced us to various different types of small group discussions. Continuing with that, one of the type of small group discussion is self-directed learning. I will be discussing about self-directed learning with the audience and competency-based skill sessions, that is practical sessions, how we will be conducting these practical sessions. My objectives for this session is to identify the concept of self-directed learning, abbreviated as SDL, to identify the appropriate competencies and teaching learning methods for self-directed learning, to plan and design an effective module of self-directed learning along with achieving an integration. And the next one is planning and designing competency. Perhaps in the first 3/4 of the session, I will be dedicating to SDL, and the next 1/4 of the session will be dedicated to competency-based skills training. And before going to that, self-directed learning, SDL, is not very new to all of us. We have been hearing about this self-directed learning. I myself was hearing about this since almost 10-15 years. But somehow the concept of self-directed learning amongst us was we will give learning material, learning resources to students and ask them to learn and come. And we might ask some questions to them, or we will presume that they have read something on their own. That was the concept of self-directed learning. A step ahead is perhaps providing them with some learning resources like PowerPoints, or asking them to download some materials from internet, or we ourselves giving them some case snippets and asking them to study themselves, because it is self-directed. But if we go in depth of self-directed learning, as the nitty-gritty of self-directed learning says that it is acquisition of knowledge, skill, accomplishment, or personal development that one selects and brings about by one's own efforts using any method in any circumstance at any time, with reasonable facilitation from teachers and peers. That means there is no time constraints for this. Person can go on accumulating knowledge as per his needs, as per his motivation, as per the circumstances or facilities available, with facilitation from teachers and peers. This is the definition of self-directed learning. What is the need of self-directed learning for us? If we go into the GMER, that is Graduate Medical Education Regulations of 2019, and CBME document of 2019, the envisaged role of UG medical graduate portrayed as IMG, Indian medical graduate, is the person has to be a clinician, the person has to be a communicator, the person has to be a team leader, the person has to be a lifelong learner. So these are the attributes. So in the need of shaping a lifelong learner, this SDL sessions would go a long way. And there is also a need for transition of our UG students from low learner maturity phase to full learner autonomy phase. There is also a need for us. Still now, most of our teaching deliverables would have been in the way of interactive lectures or didactic lectures or interactive lectures, where the role of students to critically analyze, to reflect on the learning happened, and to create some sort of innovations was lacking. So these are the needs for self-directed learning to be implemented. There are certain factors that affect self-directed learning. Extrinsic factors like prior academic experience of the student. It is very essential that the student must have some sort of background knowledge about the SDL topic. It would be unfair if when a student comes into phase 2 MBBS on day 1, we give him a topic of legal procedures and ask him to, you do SDL in this and come. Because legal procedures, the student might not have any sort of prior academic experience in that. There are some intrinsic factors like motivation, choice of topics, and the academic self-concept of the student, and how the students would manage. So these points must be considered while we as teachers design self-directed learning modules in our curriculum. While implementing self-directed learning, there has to be orientation to the learners, because till now our students are used to listen to lectures and write exams, or listen to instructions in practical sessions, do those practical sessions and appear for exams. This self-directed learning is very new to them. We need to orient them for the first. Then we need to identify the learning needs, goals, learning plans, and evaluation means. A very important point we all must try to understand at this point of time is self-directed learning is expected to be an incremental approach to the existing curriculum. It can't be a paradigm shift from traditional learning or lectures or small group learning. We can't be doing a paradigm shift. We can't be doing a jump to SDL. Moreover, SDL is said to be more critical after graduation. So perhaps at the UG level, let us not be over enthusiastic in drawing the plan for SDL. And let us also be informed that the curriculum itself says that there are 5 hours dedicated for SDL in phase 2, 5 hours dedicated for SDL in phase 3, part 2. So amongst the total 75 hours, 75 plus 50, 125 hours in the complete UG curriculum of forensic medicine, 10 hours is given for SDL. If we have a look at other subjects of the CBME document, perhaps anatomy, it has only some 40 hours of SDL in relation to some 400 or so competencies and the learning hours allotted. Even general medicine has only 15 hours of SDL. What I'm trying to tell is SDL has a lot of limitations to be implemented in UG curriculum. Let us understand those limitations and try to do the best from our side, and let us not dilute it. Let us do it in a proper way, and let us also honor the limitation the self-directed learning has in its own. The effective and innovative technologies. There are some technologies which are very essential for self-directed learning. Some of these Dr. Nagesh brought in yesterday's discussion. He spoke about flipped classroom, jigsaw method. We may also consider of taking our students in MBBS, I mean forensic students, to real patient, maybe in the emergency room or in a deceased victim in our autopsy room. This all depends upon our institutional policies and the resources that we have in our parent institution. There might be reflective writings. It is very essential. It is very much emphasized now that there has to be reflections happening in whatever learning is undergoing. There could be a problem-based learning, team-based learning, mentoring system, peer-assisted learning system, another system called PALS. These are some of the effective and innovative technologies. Actually, yesterday I had one another slide on those technologies, but my last moment of fine-tuning prompted me to remove that, because I thought, let us stick on to those very commonly done and economically viable, any one of us can access, whereas some of those, as Dr. Nagesh was telling, Kahoot yesterday, economically it is a little dearly it will cost. Those of us who could afford can always go beyond this. This is for basic minimum I am putting on screen. Evaluation must happen in SDL. Without evaluation, SDL is said to be incomplete. Evaluation can happen from students' point of view and from teachers' point of view. Here, what is the quantum of learning happened? And we might also take some inputs to design the curriculum. Maybe we would be able to add more hours, or if things are not growing in the expected way, we might even suggest to MCA and the governing bodies to reduce the hours of SDL. It could always be tried. That will happen only after we come out with first batch of SDL evaluations. Coming to the key steps in planning, here, even yesterday Nagesh was telling, in any small group teaching or discussion, the teacher becomes a facilitator. There's a very interesting quote with relation to SDL. Here it is said that role of teacher changes from saint on the stage to guide by the side. This itself tells us what is our role, what is our responsibilities in SDL. Anybody can assume which role is easier for us, being a sage on the stage or guide by the side. I obviously think that responsibility is more when we are guide by the side, because we are constantly monitoring what is the learning happening, how every student is learning, and all these 5 hours in phase 1, SDL will be happening in our monitoring. It is not that SDL is happening elsewhere. Okay, in our monitoring it will be happening. Then there is a need for us to choose the topic for SDL. While we go through the competency-based CBME document, we will see that in maybe 4th column or so, the domain says it is knowledge, skills, attitude, and communication. KSAC, that is a domain. As far as possible, we need to select those topics which are coming from knowledge domain for SDL, because skills and attitude and communication, we might not be justified if those are taken as SDL. Then level of understanding as per Miller's pyramid, the basic knows and knows how will be sufficient to be taken for SDL. Shows how and does may not be. Let us keep shows how and does at the top of the Miller's pyramid levels out of SDL. And of course, the topic we are choosing for SDL must be from core topic. In the column of core, you will see Y or N, yes or no. Let us choose the core topics. Once we choose the competence, once we choose the topic, then from that topic, we might choose some of the competencies. After the competencies are chosen, SLOs needs to be framed. All of us have been doing SLOs since almost 8-10 months or so. Under the guidance and direction of Dr. Nagesh and others, the Commons have come up with a booklet of SLOs also. That means to say, all of us are aware of how to form SLOs. And again, in this webinar series, Dr. Shankar gave a very crisp presentation of SLOs. Here also, I am taking competency and drawing SLOs as we proceed with our subsequent next slides. Next step will be, after framing the SLOs, There is a scope, there is an ample scope for us to collaborate. Even in SDL, we can achieve integration, identifying the collaborating subjects and integrating them, identifying human and material resources. This better said than done. Even yesterday, Nagesh was telling, I am quoting a lot of Nagesh's reference because it is an extension of yesterday's presentation. Ideally speaking, small group or SDL must happen with 8 to 10 students and one teacher. Is it possible? Perhaps highly unlikely. And most of us have 200 input. Perhaps in KMC, Manipal, Mangalore, as I understand, there are 250. I'm not very aware of other institutions of our state. With 200 students, 250 students, and we faculty are 4. And making 8 to 10 members of group and delivering this. So we have to really make our own alternative arrangements. And last one is reflecting on evaluation of learning happened. We have to ask the students to reflect. We need to train them first what reflection means, what a reflective learner is. We need to train them. I will be able to try to give some of my inputs as we proceed in our next slides. Now I am coming to the focused application as how each one of us who are attending this webinar, after going back to our departments, can design SDL. So available hours for SDL in our subject, phase 2 is 5 hours, phase 3 part 1 is 5 hours. All of us are aware of this, right? So let us try with selection of topics and competencies depending upon those key requirements what we just went through now. The best one to choose is clinical forensic medicine for phase 2. Meanwhile, while some of the theory would have been happening in other modes of learning platforms like maybe didactic lecture, interactive lecture, or small group discussion, the reason here is the students or the learners can relate themselves. When we speak of injuries, when we speak of abrasions, the students will relate themselves. The student would have had a grazed abrasion while riding a bicycle in his childhood, or met with another accident a couple of months back. So instead of taking something which is completely new to student, like courtroom procedures, if we choose mechanical injuries, the objectivity will become more focused for self-directed learning. Second one is socio-medical toxicology, which speaks more about drug abuse and related things. I chose this topic only in the recent couple of days. I had another topic for a phase 2 module. Considering the recent happenings about the drug abuse in Karnataka, I kept this. That also to convey a message that SDL, if topic is chosen from the contemporary happenings, right now, more or less everybody are aware of drug racket in Karnataka. Some film actress is caught, and somehow those who are at least having some sort of awareness about this happenings, they will relate themselves more readily. So that is also another point. Whatever contemporarily happening at that time, it is wise for us to pick that as topic for self-directed learning. Next one, I'm trying to make a module. Module means it is a learning activity which has learning contents, how learning is delivered, and it also has how the assessment is done. When all these components comes, it is called as a module. In medical education, this term module is used very often when all these parameters are incorporated. But giving a topic and asking them to read, and that's the end of the thing, that can never become a module. So in this topic of clinical forensic medicine, I have chosen 2 competencies under the topic of 3, that is competency number 8 and 12. I would not read these competencies because all of us have gone through this document. Well, these are the competencies, number 8 and number 12. And the SLOs drawn for 8 are like this. And again, I would not read them out. I have tried to incorporate those attributes which Shankar also stressed in the first session of the webinar, and what SLO actually has to be. Identifying the weapons that cause blunt and sharp force injuries, defining dangerous weapon as per relevant sections 324, 326, and mechanism of crush syndrome. Describe the injuries to driver, front seat occupant, back seat occupants of motor car, and so on. So these are the SLOs drawn for the competencies of 8 and 12 under topic 3, that is clinical forensic medicine, which is mechanical injuries and regional injuries. So perhaps this is the major thrust area, I would say. The lesson plan for module 1. The duration of learning, considering that we have only 5 hours, let us give 3 hours for this module, 3 hours of learning. In this, we have to have a clear-cut demarcations of breakups. First 15 minutes perhaps goes with introduction and briefing, where we can tell students what is in store for them in this particular learning module. Small group discussions with case scenarios will happen for next 30 minutes. Video clippings and cinema education will happen for next 30 minutes. At this point of time, let me tell you how video clippings could be generated. Perhaps many other colleagues might also be trying with a lot of innovations depending upon their available resources. Let me share mine here. In one of the case, autopsy I'm telling, on a road traffic accident which we did on our institution, the police was sharing the CCTV footages before doing that case. While going through those footages, I got an idea of using that as a study material, because while we say in road traffic accident, the person is dragged on a rough road for a distance and then graze depression happens, and we show photo of graze depression. Here we are able to get a live thing happening, which is caught on CCTV. Since we are forensic medicine faculty, we have good rapport with police because our everyday interaction is with them. Perhaps we can try and get the CCTV footages from them. That becomes a very good learning resource for STL. Student will relate themselves. Apart from that, student will also get a sort of awareness. The trash and negligent drive, perhaps we are trying to give a sort of awareness also on road safety measures. A lot of things are achieved. So there is a lot of scope while we design a self-directed learning. That I was trying to share. And those of us who have access to hospital, maybe we can take our students, because now early clinical exposure, students are going to hospital in first year itself. We can plan and take the students to show case of accident and the injuries. And of course, every medical institution in Karnataka does medical legal autopsy, even private institutions. We can take our students to show them the cases of injuries. The scope for integration here is with pathology, that is temporal, surgery, and even orthopedics. I went through the competencies of matching because the slides will become more and it might spill over the time. That's why I did not put it. Point of contact will be ER. So at the end of this, reflection will happen. What did the student learn? And we may also give MCQs to check his learning. This is abstract of the module. In the first 15 minutes, next 30 minutes, next 30 minutes, and 60 minutes for a major showing the injuries, live victims, and the deceased victims together, and debrief reflections on learning and MCQs. My dear friends, let us be admitting here that this time frame is only a guideline. It is certainly not possible to keep a watch clock and stop at 15 minutes and debriefing if I mean introduction and briefing, some sort of thing like that. Let us try to have this as a tool. Anticipating a question, I am answering it. There might be question as this is a block, right? I mean, this is a module and these are the blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks are there. How do we deliver these 5 blocks? Are we going to deliver this entire one module at one stretch? Or we will take first and second block once and call the students next session? That depends upon the institutional policies and willingness of the department colleagues to deliver these deliverables, and also the timetable. As far as I know, we may not get 3 hours at a stretch, either in phase 2 or in phase 3. Maybe we will get 2 hours or we get 1 hour. So let us plan and break this module into two. In the first block, let us do the introduction, briefing, and small group discussion. And next module, we may take the students to mortuary or ER, and let us do the debriefing there itself. And MCQs might happen, or MCQs hardly take 5 minutes. We might plan it and do it. So if there are any further doubts or queries in this, I will be able to try to answer them. The next one is the second module, socio-medical toxicology. I have chosen competency 12.1. It is about cannabis, cocaine, designer drugs, and solvent abuse, like that. As I said, I chose this to drive this message across, to choose a very contemporary topic for SDL, where the learners will relate. If I were to be delivering this module to my students now, whereas there are no students on board because of lockdown still continuing, the students would have related with all this happening about the drug abuse. The SLOs drawn for this a little more compared to the earlier one, but most of these SLOs are of the knowledge domain, defining drug abuse, drug addiction, right? And clinical features, post-mortem findings of cocaine, cannabis, defining designer drug, and clinical features, management of common designer drugs. This becomes SLOs for this, this competency 12.1. I would not go through reading these competencies, just an attempt to save time and spend time on this slide. So the lesson plan for SDL module 2 would be the duration of learning. We have to be very clear when we say this is a module. This module is for 2 hours, and this 2 hours may be given at, may be delivered at one stretch, or it may be fragmented and delivered. It depends upon, as I said, discretion and the institutional policies. The teaching learning methods for this, you might be observing, it is a little bit different than the previous module, because the teaching, I mean, the duration itself is 2 hours. Small group discussions might happen, video clippings, cinema education, 45 minutes, and demonstration of toxicology specimens. We are doing this even since 15, 20 years. We are doing this, bringing those specimens, maybe plant specimens or dry specimens, and showing them. The point of contact would be a demonstration room of our department. The integration here might be achieved with pharmacology and internal medicine, with nesting, temporal coordination, and sharing. Evaluation invariably must happen when we call it as SDL. I am reinforcing it. Reflection on learning and MCQs for 30 minutes. So this is the module. This module has 4 blocks, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, and 30 minutes each for the 4 blocks. The delivery of these 4 blocks might be decided by our own discretions in our institutions. Demonstration kindly read it as demonstration of toxicology specimens. Oversight on error, I am pointing at. The point of contact will be the demonstration room of forensic medicine department. So with that, we completed 2 modules that might be delivered for phase 2 MBBS over a period of 5 hours. Proceeding on to phase 3, part 1, SDL module 3. Here I again with the same guidelines to choose the topic, where the student can have interest, student can have prior academic experience. It is more happening, student may relate himself or herself. So the competency I have chosen, topic I have chosen is sexual offenses. Competencies under 3, competencies 18, 22, and 30. Meanwhile, care has to be taken that the other parallel competencies should have been taught prior to this, so that this still will become more relevant, right? Of course, competency 18 is from anatomy of male and female genitalia. And we do teach them about types of hymen, defloration, legitimacy, so on. And 22 and 30 competencies. Competencies, I have just copied it from the CBME document. Then let us make an attempt to frame SLOs for this. SLO I have tried to frame again. For 18, competency number 18, 6 SLOs could be made. Attempt is made to make SLOs very specific. If still more specificity is required, maybe describe anatomy of male genitalia become one SLO, female genitalia will become another SLO. But this also is good enough, I think. Describe anatomy of male and female genitalia together as one SLO also might be acceptable enough. And medico-legal importance of legitimacy, defining legitimacy becomes other SLOs for this particular competency. For competency number 22, maybe 6 SLOs might be drawn. Maybe again SLOs you might try to, as I said, I wanted also to make all SLOs from one competency to appear in one slide. I couldn't have been making multiple slides, so maybe if at all you want, you can further split, because the more splitting done for SLO, the more good it is. At the end, you can say those much of SLOs were delivered, if at all documentation purpose is required. So this will be the SLOs for the topic of competency 22 under topic 3, that is sexual offense. The next one is competency number 30, define torture as per UN Convention of Torture and WMA, World Medical Association, enumerating the types, methods, techniques used for torture, findings in torture, management of torture survivor, ethical and legal issues related to torture. You might also be observing that all these competencies are picked up from the knowledge domain of learning and from the level of competency knows and knows how. We are not venturing into shows how and does levels in SDL, choosing the topics. Module 3 is incorporating competencies number 3.18, that is 18, 22 and 30 number of competencies from number 3 of our document. The duration of learning here is 3 hours. Teaching learning methods, introduction and briefing will happen for 15 minutes. Small group discussion with charts. With charts means anatomy of male genitalia and different types of hymens. All this can go as charts. Each one of our departments have these photography museums where the charts are mounted. Those could be made use as teaching learning methods. And case vignettes and video clippings might be shown. Maybe examination, maybe from the social media also, the permissible, acceptable video clippings from learning point of view might be taken. The scope for integration here is vertical with anatomy, physiology, and again, it will also be vertical with OBG. Nesting and sharing might be done. Nesting and sharing or temporal coordination, these points Dr. Uday Shankar will be taking us through perhaps tomorrow's session. What I would like to tell at this point of time is, when we say nesting, sharing, that doesn't mean the faculty of anatomy or faculty of OBG has to come to forensic medicine demonstration room and tell it. Nesting means we as subject experts can bring those concepts of anatomy and OBG and we can deliver the deliverables here. Reflection on learning and MCQs will happen as a part of evaluation. I am putting abstract of this module, module 3, for phase 3 part 1, where the introduction and briefing will happen for 15 minutes. Again, this is a module with 4 blocks of 15 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes each. And whether this module is delivered in 1 hour at one fragment, 2 hours in another fragment, or it could be, again, I'm telling, it could be the discretion of the department. Case vignettes and video clippings. It could be kindly read as forensic medicine demonstration room. I had put museum because in our department we have photography museum and soft specimen museum. Most of these things we do in photography museum. Then I was made to understand that using word museum might cause some sort of confusion. I changed in other slides, perhaps I had missed changing in this slide. Kindly read it as FM, demonstration room, where the point of contact will happen. That is module 3. The last module, module 4, this I have tried with medical jurisprudence, medical ethics and law. Initially, I had my own reservations about this. While I discussed this with my colleague Vinay in the department as to which are the most suitable or ideal topics, considering that student must be having prior knowledge and contemporary happening, all these things. Somehow we ruled out medical ethics and law because we thought how the student would relate with all negligence and all things. Then again, I thought while putting, I wanted to bring in this because this is more happening, medical jurisprudence. And this is most favorite topic of most of us forensic medicine teachers. Another point to justify this is, since the CBME has got implemented since past year, 2019, our students are having this ECE, early clinical exposure. They are going to hospital. And there are ADCOM modules. Module 1 in phase 1, what it means to be a doctor, what it means to be a patient. So reasonably, students have been exposed to that. It is very ideal for us to take this as self-directed learning. Competencies from knowledge domain, knows how level of learning is good enough for this. And one more thing is students will relate themselves because many of them might be from doctor's family. They would have seen their father, mother, elder brother, sister, anybody in the family working, the hardships, the commitment, the duties, the disillusions that might be their parents going through. So these kids might be able to relate themselves and learning might be accelerated. So that is the point. So in each of these modules, I am trying to drive some strong messages, only hoping that it will reach the audience. Explain, these are the competencies I have taken from medical jurisprudence, that is ethics and law. From the topic of 4 competencies, 22, 23, 24, I have chosen. And SLOs are framed for these competencies. Very simple ones of knowledge domain. There is nothing more here. The oath and components of Declaration of Geneva and the modified Declaration of Geneva. That is for 4.221. And for the next competency of 24, I have drawn 5 SLOs. Again, very common knowledge sort of thing, rights and privileges of registered medical practitioner, duties of doctor-patient relationship, professional secrecy and privileged communication. I drew this SLOs because I consulted my preclinical staff here. Since I am in MEU, I have I have the privilege of designing the ADCOMs. I myself have conducted ADCOM sessions for phase 1 students, where we have taught them perhaps in a very common way. After you see the patient, don't come out and discuss or chat about the patient in the coffee house. Don't sit in food court and said that patient had this disease. So that is against medical ethics. In EC itself and in ADCOM modules, we have been telling the students. So here they will be drawing it forth. It is an extension of the learning which they would have had in their preclinical phase in ECE and ADCOM. So the lesson plan for this module will be of 2 hours. Here the introduction will happen for 15 minutes and small group discussion, case vignettes, video clippings. Here resources might be aplenty. While we speak of medical ethics and law, we will get enough and more resources to constitute learning methods for our case vignettes and video clippings. If possible, we might draw attention of students of local cases, perhaps a case reported from a local hospital, case reported in local evening newspaper. So as much as possible, the contemporary things where the student can relate and to the self-directed learning. Point of contact, forensic medicine demonstration room. Integration is happening with ATCOM. ATCOM of phase 1, we might draw some of those learning experiences, and nesting and sharing will be the ideal ways of integration for this module. Reflection of learning and reflection on learning, both will happen. If time permits, I want to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes on what it is, what it means to be reflection on learning, and who is called a reflective learner, and why so much of emphasis is put in CBME document to train our IMG as reflective learner. So the extract of this module, perhaps I have made only 3 blocks for this module because the contents were such like 15 minutes and 1 hour with another module and 45 minutes for reflection and MCQs. So with this, I came to the end of first component, that is SDL. I had planned it as first 40 minutes. I thought I tried to do it. Before moving on to practicals or skill sessions, let me throw light on a couple of points as what it is a reflective learner. Many of our forensic colleagues are involved in medical education. It might be a repetition for them, kindly pardon me. My intention is to reach those who are not into medical education, but still they have to do these many components in the basic minimum way as it is expected from the curriculum, right? So the thrust is now with the CBME is to make our learners more creative. It was said earlier, the teacher used to teach and the student used to either listen or not. So now the onus is, as I said, SDL, sage from the stage or saint from the stage to the guide by the side. So when we get down of the stage and go and stand beside the student, we will be more near to the student. We might get those reasons which are preventing his learning. So our role is also becoming as a mentor. That's why there is another technique, mentoring. While imparting the learning, we are also trying to be counselors for him. We are becoming multitaskers here. How much we might be achieving our target, it is even I don't know, but nothing must prevent us from trying our best. So reflection means what did we learn in the first place? So what and what next? That's all three steps in reflection. Well, we have applied this. I'm sharing the practice happened in our institution. We need to tell what new thing we developed in our department in our 6 months once assessment which happens for NAC and IQAC related aspects. So how much of innovations could be created? Well, it is very limited, but this time I discussed with my other colleagues in the department, and we implemented this. Actually, we do this moot court for students, a role play. It is my FIMER project also. After enacting, one of the students who played public prosecutor or who played defense or who played doctor would give reflections. And just believe me, the students, after telling them how to reflect, what to reflect, and give 1 day time, they will prepare awesome reflection. I was stunned. And we presented this as one of the best or new practice that we have started, and it got appreciation across all departments, including the university authorities. So in all modules, I have been telling reflection at the end.
Arun,
Yes.
your next slide is not visible. It's a module 4. It's still there only.
Yeah, I have stopped here. I have stopped here.
Oh,
I
okay.
did not move to next slide, Dr. Nagesh.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that. Actually, there was a purpose. Whatever I'm telling now is not there in the slide. My next slide is this. I wanted to take a pass at this slide and tell how reflections are done. We need also to train our students for reflection. That was my purpose. Well, so we need also to train the students, perhaps in the introduction session of each modules. Here is a module. We might also tell the students that after the learning experience, you need to reflect. What did you learn? How it is going to help you? Perhaps every student is not same. If we train them, perhaps out of 50 students, maybe 5 students also reflects well, the purpose is met. This is my next slide. This is the last 1/4 fragment of my presentation. I thought I will spend it for skills training. Skills training or practical training, I have taken one competency, that is 14.1. Even whether it is theory or it is practical, SLOs has to be framed. With the new curriculum, without SLOs, we are not going to take a step also, right? So these are the SLOs drawn for competency 14.1. So for that competency, taking informed consent from the patient, guardian after explaining the importance in different cases like road traffic accident, self-infliction, burns, fall from height, performing the clinical examination of injured person, whenever there is access. Otherwise, as of now, what we do here is we have this case scenarios. We have developed the cases which we give to the students, and from that narration of the situation, students have to pick up the history part, pick up the injury part, and they have to write it in the tabular column, prepare the wound certificate documenting the clinical findings, and draw inference, draw inference and give opinion depending upon the observations made. So these are the SLOs drawn for the competency of practical session. And imparting the practicals also has to be outlined with teaching learning methods. It could be a real case or case scenario. It could be a standardized patient. Real case, I'm not very sure. As far as our institution is concerned, our hospital is located 6 kilometers apart from the department. It becomes a little difficult for us to move. Perhaps we might be able to explore some possibility for this situation. As of now, we do autopsy and we are taking our students to autopsy room to show the injury part. That we may again take for the practicals while we do the practicals. And standardized patient for injuries, if one of our attenders has had a abrasion or something like that, we might ask that attender or that person to be a learning resource. So these are the teaching learning methods. And I am restricting myself only to the lesson plan for this particular competency. And I'm also trying to emphasize that the lesson plan, whether it is theory or practicals, has to be aligned with assessment. It is said assessment drives learning. When students are told that you will be taught these many things and you will be assessed on these lines, we will really appreciate that the learning enthusiasm will be more. And when students would have gone through the previous question bank and made sure that some of the topics which are taught has never appeared in the question bank for the past 5 years or so, which will not be there for assessment in the terms, student might not have that urge to study that, right? So here, let me go in a little more detail for this. I did not write it only to make sure that the slide will not get overcrowded. It could be part 1 is preliminary details where the name, age, gender, MLC number, such preamble part, what we call, comes as preliminary details. Consent is very essential. Identification marks, they would have taught in their identification theory class. Those competency might be clubbed with this again here. 2 marks from exposed parts of the body, so on and so forth, what we tell. History of the incident, details of injuries, opinion, and signature, right? While teaching, let us give weightage for the weightage for each of these parameters. Undoubtedly, the weightage will be more for details of injuries. Perhaps we can give 4 marks for this. The injuries would have been mentioned in a paragraph, like a description. Students have to pick up and label them as injury number 1, 2, 3, 4, abrasion, contusion, size, location, everything. Let us give more weightage for this. Well, first priority for picking up the injuries from the given data, or observing the injuries from the given patient, real patient, or a standardized patient, and writing them, right? That is the major thrust. Next thrust will be for identification marks, then consent, history of the incident to relate it with the injuries, because if we see one of the competencies in mechanical injuries says fabricated injuries and spurious injuries. So if the injuries doesn't match with history, those parts we can bring in for discussion. And how to draw opinion will be the next component. Preliminary details and the concluding part will become the last component. We must emphasize that if you do an excellent work here and forget to sign, forget to write your name, forget to put your seal, the entire document becomes a useless one. So each part is important. And perhaps Nagesh will tell in the assessment part how much of marks to be given for each one of this. That is called a rubrics. Rubrics means a format sort of thing, which tells us what is taught and how it is assessed based upon the rubrics. Rubrics could differ from institution to institution. Well, and this is for the lesson plan. With that, I came to the end of this session. I thank all the audience for the wonderful participation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful and crisp presentation.